And welcome to Tuesday's daily vlog. To be honest, I've been pushing on quite heavily with this one this morning. We've got the engines installed with it and it went something like this. So yeah, I must admit, okay, we all know with this kit, the engine nacelles are wrong. The fans are too close forward, they're slightly wrong, the shaping and everything else like that. But actually, again, this is one of those things. Previously, I've avoided this kit, as we know, because of the horror stories. And here we are again in that situation where we've put the actual nacelles together and everything else like that, and we show it in the video. It's a little bit complex, a little bit of juggling around with it, but again, spending that little bit of time test fitting or dry fitting, take a little bit off, have a look, test fit, doing all of that. And I've ended up with a situation where actually I don't think we're going to need filler. I think with a bit of sanding and blending would be okay. All right, so down in here you can probably see we've got a little bit of a shimmer plastic art, but to me that's just part of modelling. This is what it's all about, putting things in there, making it fit right, getting the angles. Alignment is so critical on this particular aircraft, and something where, to be honest, we've actually had the calipers out, working out heights and differences and making sure everything's right, because it'd be far too easy to put like this engine, the entire block, slightly canted to one side, and before you know it, you look at it, the engines are doing this, the tailplanes are coming the other way, and the wings are like this, and it's just not going to work. look. So spending a little bit of time getting the calipers out, we had it down, we had it flat, we were measuring distances, making sure the heights were the same, making sure it was just in perfect alignment is paid off. And as we can see, we've got it on its gear. So thank God it's not a tail sitter, but it's close. We could have it in a takeoff type of, or landing, but it's not. To be honest, we've still got to put the seat in there, still got to put some of the gun weight in there and stuff like that. And obviously we have got other bits of metal. We've got the boarding ladder. It's going to weigh down the front end by the time we get all those in there. So I'm not worried about it. It was just that thing I thought, right, on this particular part, we've cleaned up all the metal parts as well. So I thought, well, we'll get them installed, just have a look. We can always pull them out. They're only a test fit. And it is fine, thank the Lord. So anyway, really pushed on with this one. I'm going to let this one dry overnight. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to come down. We're going to sand, re-rivet, re-scribe, and put in the raised rivets. We're going to be using Archer ones on these, get this in, and then I should see no real reason by tomorrow night we haven't got this in looking black, and we're going to put it into black primer right the way over this just to go around, have a good look at it. Again, I'm not so much into black basing, but when you're doing aircraft like this, because they're so big, I think a black primer coat down there just makes them look more heavy. It gives it a more solid look. You might remember when we did the space shuttle, that monster that we've got up there, which looks like it's slightly leaning. Bit of a worry there. Note to self, check it when we finish this. But doing things like that, when you're dealing with bigger scales, it's all too easy to make them look very plasticky. So I'm a great believer in putting black down there. You know my theory on this one when we do things like gear, when it's white legs, doing them black first, and that way the white looks more solid. This is going to be grey all over, so it's not going to worry. But it just gives it a good solid look to it. And again, the A10 has that thing about, it's not a particularly nice aircraft. It doesn't have finesse. I've looked over these aircraft at every opportunity, and there's filler, there's bits of duct tape on them. They are literally held together that way. And I love that about this aircraft. It's rough, it's rugged. It doesn't matter if you really screw up the paintwork on this, because let's face it, it's in a low level environment. Wear and tear all over it, so it doesn't really matter. So you can afford to have scuffs, imperfections, things like that. It's all going to add to the overall feel of this aircraft. It's definitely not going to be some type of showbird, but generally, as you can see, it's a huge monster lump that has come together really, really well. And here we are now at the back end of the construction phase, and it's really what we were talking about, how modelling seems to have moved away from the basics. And I'm not going to harp on about it because I know other people have spoken about it, and I don't want to sort of jump on the bandwagon, but I'm really thinking that a lot of people are complaining about model kits these days and basically turning around saying how they're unbuildable and it's wrong and this and that, and we're modelers. At the end of the day, these little problems are what made modelling what it is today. Our forefathers, here we are, I'm speaking like I'm 110, but our forefathers out there and our parents and grandparents who made models didn't have computerized CAD design and everything else like that. They weren't in that sort of digital era. So it was always done with yardsticks, measurements, crude drawings, old plans to give us the basic shape. And because of that, I almost feel that they expected it not to go together. So it was up to the modeler to use their skills and their talents to put it together. Now, I'm not saying we should go back to that old school way of doing it and all things like that. But what I am saying is I'm starting to sort of sense from particularly vocal people on the internet now about things are unbuildable and it's terrible, and like, yeah, I'd spent all this money on a kit, you expect it to be right. Don't forget, part of what we do as a hobby is taking the challenge of a kit and putting it together. It's always been part of it. If you just want to put things together, go and do Lego. I do Lego, hands up. I like Lego as well. But, from that point of view, when you're just dealing with something which is, generic and it fits together, it's construction. With this, you need those little finesses. And the more I talk to people, especially, and the more I listen to some of the people out there, it's almost like they've forgotten the basics of sanding, filling, test fitting, dry fitting. I have done more dry fitting on this particular kit than I think I've ever done on any other kit before. And again, it's purely because I've heard all the horror stories about this kit of how it's unbuildable and nothing aligns and the alignment and it's terrible this and it's awful that. But actually, I'm spending my time, I'm checking the alignment with test fitting, dry fitting, measuring things. And actually it's coming together really, really well. So it's almost like, again, I'm expecting it to be a problem, so I've gone into modeler mode, really. I think that's what it is, where, okay, it's got some problems, but that's part of what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing here. If it just fell together, I think you would lose the sort of, I don't know, sense of achievement at the end of the build, knowing that, you know, let's face it, it's not the best kit in the world, but actually it's done really well. And I can look at my collection that I've got up there. Some of them, obviously I've got Tamiya. You know, Tamiya is going to fall together. It's going to go together absolutely beautifully. Going to be doing the Mosquito soon. I'm going to love that. It's going to be wonderful. But I've got other models up there. You know, a lot of people say about, oh, you don't build Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk Jaguar I've got up there, and I've got various other kits. The Kitty Hawk Jaguar is a classic example of one where if you was to read everything that anyone's ever said about that build, you would never build it. But as long as you take your time with it, think about it methodically and think of it from a modelling point of view of, yes, it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. How are we going to fix it? Now with me, I took the easy option and I had it all open. Cured that problem. The kit goes together really, really well. If you want to close it up, you're going to need filling, sanding, test fitting, shimming, all these little tools and techniques, which is what I think is bread and butter of modelling. You know, forgetting painting, weathering and all the stuff that goes on with it, the basics of modelling is taking a couple of bits of plastic and gluing them together. What you want to do though is just take your time to learn those little basic things about, okay, it doesn't fit. Why doesn't it fit? Okay, test fitting. This is what we're saying about it. This particular kit has worked beautifully because of all the test fitting, dry fitting we've done onto this one, sanding a bit, test it again, sand it a bit more. And to be honest, you're going to see a lot about this in part 6. No, part 7 it'll be, sorry, which is the next one up, which will probably be up with you on Thursday. That particular one, you will see me putting this nacelle system entirely together. Talk about trying to getting it all buttoned up and then fitted onto here. And I go extensively about, you know, we've got files out and we're sanding a little bit, test fitting, sanding, and put it in. And now we've dropped this guy in with no issues whatsoever, and it looks fantastic and fitted perfectly. And a classic example where a lot of modelers might come along and think, oh, well, it doesn't fit and it's rubbish. It's not, it does fit, just needs a little bit of finesse just to get it down in there. So that's what I would like to see more of. Instead of people complaining about model kits not going together, is actually seeing it a little bit more of, okay, yeah, it's a model kit. It's not a construction kit. You're not building a replica model. You're actually building a plastic kit and putting it together. And because of that, there is going to be problems with it. Now, it may be everything from ill-fitting parts, ejector pins through the molding process, flash through the molding process. It may be, you know, they really cocked up, and let's face it, it does happen. Not so much these days with digital design, but it's happened in the past, okay, and things like that. But it is up to the modeler to go as far as he wants to correct the problem. So you might get a modeler who put this together and he might think, right, okay, I'm just going to put it together, no real filler, we're going to paint and weather it, we're going to have a lovely looking A10, and you will. You'll get somebody else who's probably a little bit more like me, who's going to take a little bit more time, make sure the alignments are all good, making sure everything's happy with it, making sure everything's lined up, and making sure it's as seamless as you could possibly make it. So we've taken our time down the spines, all the visual areas, and as I explained about it, there's a few things underneath, no one's going to see it, I'm not worried about it. So we haven't taken as much care in those areas. But that's my thing. Then you're going to get the other person who's going to go to town on this, who's going to take his time and probably treat how it should be done, with all fairness, but the wing as a separate, and he'll make it perfect, and then the other wing, and then he'll get that alignment. It's going to take him a long time, but he's going to end up with an absolute stunning A10. But this is it. Are you a quick build guy who's quite happy with your end results? Far to you. Probably like me, I'm somewhere in between. I'm quite happy for a quick build, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life building one kit. Okay, so I'm going to push through and do things as quickly as possible with the best finish I can do in that time frame that I'm given. Or are you a perfectionist who might spend 3 years on one model and you're going to end up with something absolutely fantastic? You're all right. You're all good modelers, you know, as long as you've taken the time to get there. But the people who, as far as I'm concerned, aren't very good modelers are the ones that will just complain and bash a kit purely because it is what it is. But it is a model kit. You're a modeler. You should be putting it together. So I'm not having a dig at anybody because, let's face it, I've had a couple of digs at kits in the past where there's been blatant mistakes with them and things like that. But generally, I think, especially doing these older kits, it's more appreciation of the skills that I've learned, the basics of sanding, filling, test fitting, all those things. And I'm sort of, I don't know, speaking to guys on the forum and in general, things like that, there seems to be far too much sort of emphasis now on weathering. Okay, and everyone's forgetting the basics about actually putting a model together so you don't have big gaps, sink marks, you know, ejector pins showing through, and you know, all those things. You know, these are things which you should learn first, get the basics down, then you move on to. But it looks like people are sort of sidestepping construction and going straight to weathering and stuff like that. And I'm not sure it's the right sort of attitude to have. I think, you know, obviously, if you're like me, I hate construction. I prefer airbrushing and weathering. That's my thing. But you need to have this to be able to do it. You know, it is that thing of like walking before you can run. So there we go. That's my little thought for the day. Hopefully, you know, as you say, building older kits like this, it gives me a new appreciation for the good stuff. Almost, if you're going to build a kit, you know, let's face it, the Meng Mustang is a classic example, glue-free and all the rest of it. Glue-free it is not, and at the end of the day. But it's a beautiful kit, but it's got lots of little fit issues. But again, if you take your time, make sure you get rid of those burring bits, the flash bits, work out the reasons why, you're going to end up with an absolute stunning kit. And to my mind, is still probably the best Mustang there is in 48 scale on the market. Forgetting it's glue-free, because it clearly isn't. But from a technical point of view and detail point of view, I think it is the best Mustang out there. But got lots of problems, got lots of fit issues, it's got lots of little niggly bits that don't really line up and go, but again, spend your time with it, no problem at all, and you're going to end up with an absolutely stunning kit. So anyway, there we go, that's me rabbiting on again. This one is up for you now. So obviously on here we're going to talk about obviously masking up. I know a couple of you asked me when are you going to see the masking. That is up with you today. We're going to talk about that. We talk about obviously the engine, the nacelles, the various bits and pieces on this one in this particular part, and then really it's going to get you up to speed. The next part will be up with you on Thursday, and it's going to talk about right the way up to primer, because then we're going to take a break, and then obviously then parts basically 8, 9, 10 and onwards are all going to be part of the painting, weathering, doing the markings on there and all things like that. So I think once we are in the paint stage, it's really going to push through really, really quickly, because there's not going to be a lot to hold us back on this particular one. So anyway, there we go. Thoroughly enjoying it. It's absolutely fantastic. I hope you're enjoying your modelling too. All right, so there we go. Happy modelling. Take care. I'll catch you all tomorrow.